I think what we need to do is make sure that we create solutions that consider people's privacy, their security. We need to create solutions that are open and transparent and fair and equitable to everybody so that we stand a chance of closing the divide.
We have the pleasure of welcoming Nigel Willson to our interview series today. I am Nishita Goyal from the Engati team. But before I begin, be sure to hit the subscribe button for more exclusive content from the thought leaders across the globe. So let me begin with introducing with Engati platform. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, which is available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use cases. Engati has been recognized as a top platform by INC.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We do run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati Engage podcast, which receives more than 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. Nigel Willson is a global speaker, influencer, and advisor on artificial intelligence, innovation, and technology. He's also an ex-European Chief Technology Officer, but now an independent voice on AI and machine learning. He's the co-founder of V and AI, whose mission is to increase public awareness and understanding of the risks and rewards of AI in the UK. Welcome, Nigel. We are thrilled to have you on board.
Thank you. And thanks very much for inviting me to have a conversation with you.
That's great. So just a quick message for my audience out here. We do have something special for you, so please stick around till the end of the interview. Great. So I'm going to begin with my first question. As a recognized expert in AI and machine learning, can you please share us with your thoughts on the state of AI and machine learning, its utility and adoption in different organizations?
Yeah, sure. Such a good question in the current climate, because I guess the first thing is that the kind of state is there's the old state, and what we're now kind of finding is the new state. I guess if I talk about kind of how things kind of were up until the point we're in now, I think because of the embedded nature of artificial intelligence, everybody is an adopter, whether they know it or not. So nearly all of the cloud services, smart devices, or websites that you go to use some kind of AI. But those organizations that were specifically looking at projects involving AI, I kind of think I would categorize them into kind of three areas. One would be adopters, so obviously the people that were kind of using and adopting AI. Experimenters, so those that had AI projects and were kind of looking to see what benefit they may be able to get from it in proof of concepts. And also the skeptics, so those people that weren't sure that AI was of value for them, or they wanted to understand what the return on investment was going to be. And I guess in the current climate, maybe those skeptics are kind of slightly less. But for most kind of customers, the biggest challenge was moving from a great idea or a proof of concept through to full adoption. And often that was because they didn't have the right sponsorship, or they didn't have the right teams involved, like information security. So I think they would do a proof of concept and have a great idea, but then struggle with the kind of scale out. And also some of the skeptical organizations, they had the view that their brand and reputation kind of meant that they didn't need to look at like something like AI to transform their business. But as I say, that's kind of pretty much the old state, and we're now in this new situation where I think even the skeptics, as a result of what we've been experiencing recently, are kind of starting to see the value of artificial intelligence and some of these technologies.
That's true. That's completely true. So we all know that chatbots are something which are powered by AI specifically, and this is gaining a lot of attraction. And that's how people are getting to know about AI as a technology. How do you think that can be used to improve the customer service function?
Yeah, so I guess even before the kind of pandemic and the issues that we're in now, kind of chatbots were probably one of the easiest ways for an organization to experiment and implement an AI solution. And initially they'd look at things like, maybe frequently asked questions, whether that be for their internal organization or whether customer facing. And then the whole thing around the initial customer kind of connection and redirection. So when you go to a website and you get asked if you want to chat, I guess some of the challenges were that for organisations that they maybe looked at the technology first and not really thought about their business processes. So really the important thing is to look at the business process first and then the technology second. So where that kind of fits in as a secondary. And where does AI kind of fit in to all of this? So on top of the chatbot interface, there are things like, and you've talked about some of it already, like language translation facilities that you've got, but also natural language processing. So the ability to kind of take the natural language we're using and interpret that, predictive analytics, and maybe even things like image recognition, where we can kind of upload a picture. Maybe we're looking for car insurance and we upload a picture of our car. It's recognizing the kind of picture of the car without us having to say the exact make and model. Maybe kind of best of all, things like speech recognition and speech synthesis. So the ability to kind of recognize the spoken voice and synthesize a response back. I think the most important thing with kind of chatbots is that they don't pretend or try and trick you into thinking that they're a human being. We need to understand that we're interacting with technology and always have a route at the end of it back through to a human operator if needed.
So how do you think, there are still customers who don't want to actually talk to a bot? Or what do you think is adoption in the millennial generation versus a previous generation in terms of adopting to bots, or people do want to still stick to human agents? How do you think organizations will have to cope with that?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, the current kind of situation we're in, is a great example of the value of a chatbot, really. The fact that we can have a conversation and get questions answered and be redirected to the right place to find information with actually a human kind of being involved in it. And I think that's the value that people will see that will kind of drive adoption. So, all across the world, we've got people that are being kind of furloughed or put on job retention while they're having to kind of be at home. But a lot of the businesses want to kind of continue. So kind of chatbots are a great way of actually maintaining that kind of connection without having people involved. And I think that, maybe again, those that were slightly skeptical of interacting with a bot before will see the benefits. But I think even before the current situation we're in, people want access to information quickly. And I think they're less hesitant about, what the underlying technologies are if they are able to ask a question and get a quick response. So I think, again, that's the value of the kind of, chatbots and those kind of environments can kind of bring to people, easy access to information. And I think that tends to override the kind of thoughts that they're interacting with the technology and not a person.
Very true. I think people do adopt to bots just for the reason that they want a quick turnaround. Nobody wants to wait, or nobody has the patience for customer agents to log in. And especially at the odd times, you do not know who's surfing your website from which part of the world. So I think bots really play an essential role out there. Okay, so you did speak about adopting AI. There are 3 sets how people are segregated when it comes to AI. How do you think countries are adopting or using AI to fight against COVID-19, or do you see any new developments across this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the first thing to say that there's a lot of hype and marketing around artificial intelligence and COVID if you look at the press. But I think even once you kind of cut through that, artificial intelligence is definitely helping in a number of areas. And we've been talking about chatbots, and perhaps that's one of the first ones to kind of pick on. Right at the beginning of the kind of pandemic, Microsoft worked with the CDC in the US and launched a chatbot which was a symptom information checker. So people could kind of interact and kind of get some answers as to whether it thought that they needed to seek medical attention. And Google created a similar sort of platform that they open sourced. And again, to your point about language translation, there's a statistic which 30% of the population of the world don't have access to information on COVID in their own language. So, chatbots are a great way of taking kind of information that you've created in one language and making it multilingual through the language translation. So that's a really kind of inclusive way of using kind of chatbots. But apart from that, there's all the areas around kind of medical science, from things like analysing images of chest X-rays to see whether they think that somebody might have COVID, even diagnosing from the sounds of a cough. I've seen systems that are looking to enforce social distancing by looking at how close people are through kind of cameras out on the streets. And there's obviously the things around kind of new drugs and vaccines that are being developed. One of the things maybe to call out is, as you said, I work for a not-for-profit organisation called We in AI. We've got a website, weinai.org, and there's an article actually that I published recently on the many different ways that artificial intelligence is being used to kind of counter the pandemic, because it's it's probably an hour-long topic in itself because there are so many different ways.
You did mention about V and AI. Would you like to elaborate a bit more about that initiative? What are you trying to? You're moving on a very positive mission out there. If you want to express your views on that mission, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to do that. So as I said, We in AI is a not-for-profit and a non-government organisation, and it's really about raising the awareness of artificial intelligence in our everyday lives, and raising that awareness to maybe kind of parts of the community that are not normally exposed to it, so a non-technical audience. And I suppose our remit is through kind of community, kind of information and education, but also through influencing kind of research, just to make sure that people are aware of the unintended consequences sometimes of artificial intelligence. I mean, it is embedded, as I said, into all of the things that we kind of have and do on a daily basis, and really it's about kind of making that available to people and exposing that to people, making the invisible AI visible to people, so that they can express a view on whether they think that there's any impact on their kind of privacy.
True. That's great. So you do talk about the risk of AI. What do you think organizations should be watching for in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, it's AI can be seen as or not seen in this case as an invisible technology. So it can make decisions on our behalf without fully realizing the consequences of those decisions. And I think there's an increased risk as a result of the pandemic that we're going through, that there will definitely be an acceleration in terms of technology, and organizations may look to take shortcuts in order to get their solutions up running quickly, without fully considering the implications. So, some of the things they need to think about is to ensure that the data that they have is sufficient and it's representative and inclusive. Quite often we've seen artificial intelligence solutions kind of developed in a lab or as a proof of concept that are put out there into the kind of real world that then fail, because there wasn't a sufficient data set. And we need to be transparent if we're collecting data, on what data we're collecting, how it's going to be used. Is there a kind of end life for that data when it will be deleted? And I think the other thing is teams that are working on AI solutions need to be diverse in terms of all of the different dimensions and the abilities of the people working on that team. There's still very much in AI and data science a male bias, and that's something that we're trying to kind of work towards to get more people involved in education from a diverse background, and also not to rely on automation and AI solutions entirely. The human aspect of this is kind of critical. So we talked in chatbots about kind of handing over at the end maybe to a human being if kind of all the kind of AI part of that has kind of led it to that being the next best solution. But the best solutions really are a combination of human expertise and artificial intelligence. And for those organizations that aren't sure, they should consult with experts in privacy and AI ethics, and trying to consider those unintended consequences of the solutions that they create.
Yeah, so I do understand from your response that AI is still at its infant stage, and we do have a long way to actually be a master and follow all the ethics and the privacy controls out there.
Absolutely. It's an incredibly exciting technology, but sometimes, when you're involved in exciting technologies, you can kind of get a bit carried away and maybe not consider the full implications of kind of what you're doing. So it's just a kind of word of caution really to say, AI is a set of great technologies, but we also need to kind of counter that with, the kind of cautious approach of making sure that we're implementing it in a responsible way.
That's very correct. Okay, so how do you see technology changing its roadmap to accommodate the new normal outbound after the COVID pandemic?
So I guess in a word, dramatically, it's good. We are going to see a dramatic change in technology. So if you consider things like the impact that we've all had of kind of home working, and how we monitor people that are home working for their productivity, the fact that things like predictive analytics has really been we've had to throw away a lot of the predictive analytics because we're in a situation that's kind of not normal and not predictable. The new business models as kind of companies want to move to be more online, less bricks and mortar. So things are going to change dramatically, and we need solutions that can automate some of those human elements. So things like chatbots, but also process automation, because we need to reduce the reliance of kind of mundane tasks on people, because as people haven't been available to kind of keep things kind of going, we need to we need to be kind of more reliant on the technology, not in its entirety, still people there, but more reliant on it. And also we need scalable solutions. And I think at the beginning of the crisis, we kind of saw the stretch on some of the cloud services. And for a while they weren't able to cope with the number of people that all of a sudden were deciding to work from home and the bandwidth they're using. So we need really scalable solutions, but we need scalable solutions that we can kind of switch on, and we need to be able to scale them up, but also scale them down. And I think now in the current situation, we need to be able to turn them off as well, because there'll be businesses that can't operate, and they want to be able to turn their services off for a period of time so they can save costs.
Very well said, yeah. So you did talk about home working, and relating to that, how do you think, or how do you imagine, I would say rather, workplaces or businesses of tomorrow would leverage AI and automation technologies?
So inevitably, at the back of the situation we're in, there is going to be an economic downturn. And lots of organizations will look to gain some sort of business advantage. And maybe this will be from existing technologies that they may have resisted or considered not relevant. And so some of those we've kind of talked about already. We've talked about the skeptics, and maybe some of those skeptics are now a bit more convinced about how technology is important to their business. But technology's been kind of growing exponentially now for some time. And as we kind of create new technology, that new technology is designing and generating the next generation of technology. So we see this kind of exponential growth. Yet at the same time as we've got the growth, we see the costs over time exponentially going down. So we get great technology for a really cheap price. And so we see this from this cycle of from infancy to adoption being a lot quicker than than you might think it can be. So people say about technologies that are in their infancy, but they can be widely adopted very quickly. And I think we've seen in the pandemic that we're kind of going through at the moment how quickly things can kind of turn and technology can be bought and kind of put online. But I think others will be looking at some of the near future technologies, so some of those that may be considered to be in the infancy. Things like 5G is going to be massive now, because we need better and higher speed connectivity, and we need it across all areas so that everybody can get access to these online services. Things like quantum computing, which have been around for a little while now in its infancy, for speed and power. And especially in areas such as medical science, as we look to find new solutions and new kind of vaccines to the COVID virus.
Very true. That's very well said. So, any other sound bites that you want to leave my audience with?
Yeah, so I guess kind of final thoughts were really, we're in a situation where there's a lot of adversity and tragedy from the current pandemic, but also there will be a tremendous opportunity in terms of technological advancement. And really, with all technological advancement, it can create a greater divide between those who have and those who have not. And 5G is an example that I gave there. I think what we need to do is we make sure that we create solutions that consider people's privacy, their security. We need to create solutions that are open and transparent and fair and equitable to everybody, so that we stand a chance of closing the divide. It's a really exciting time, and we don't quite know what our new normal will look like, but we need to make sure that we make it a better one for everyone.
That's true. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nigel, for giving us your time. Your insights were really valuable, and I know my audience is going to really enjoy this interview.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for your time.
Great. So, guys, if you're stuck around for this long, we are excited to announce that our ebook, The Evolution of Customer Experience, is out finally, and it is available to download. Please check the link in the description below, and we'll be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned, and we'll see you around for the next one.